what's your takeaway regarding the Trudeau government's plans to demonize the Freedom Convoy even before it arrived in Ottawa?
Yeah, well, I think, the narrative they've tried to push is that, oh, we had no choice but to use the Emergencies Act. It was a last ditch resort. There's nothing we could do. The situation got so bad. And the fact that they were already calling, the Freedom Convoy extremists before it got there, as you say, getting in their words, on the narrative that the media was pushing, it just shows that they had their end game kind of thought out ahead of time, right? They were always going to try to make it look like, January 6th. They were always going to try to make it look extreme, and they were always going to try to use it to justify expanding government power. So, the idea that they were ever acting in good faith and that they were ever really willing to listen to other people is obviously, absurd. And what's so unfortunate about it is, at one point, Justin Trudeau, before the 2021 election, said, Canada's not a country that mandates vaccinations. He didn't seem to want to divide Canadians down those lines. And then the second they got worried about an election, their poll numbers weren't looking good, he decided to divide the country. And even after the election, he decided to keep pushing with that division, and obviously drove so many people to the point where they felt they had no choice but to go and protest. And so at each step of the way, he's chosen to escalate and, push people to be angrier and divide people more and more. And then he goes in there and talks about, oh, division's a real threat in this country and Canadians need to be united. And it's just, the hypocrisy is just absurd.
No, indeed, as the saying goes, physician, heal thyself. But Spencer, you brought up the inquiry. And of course, the reason for the inquiry is the invocation of the Emergencies Act. And it's an automatic that an inquiry does follow when it comes to the Emergencies Act. Here's the thing, of all the people that are going to testify, I just can't wait to see Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino take the stand, because he has said repeatedly and over again that law enforcement asked the government to invoke the act. We have no evidence. We have everyone from the Ottawa Police Service to the RCMP saying, not us. So either Marco Mendicino is, shockers, lying, or there is some, remote police force somewhere that advised the government to invoke the act. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, today you have Brenda Lucki saying that, she doesn't know why she sent a message talking about, showing retroactive, police and authority support for using the Emergencies Act. So obviously they're trying to get their story all lined up and it's not working for them. And so, yeah, I think you're right. He's going to be very interesting to watch. I mean, he also has talked about needing the Emergencies Act because of the threat of arson. The supposed story of someone from the Freedom Convoy trying to set an apartment on fire, which of course the police repeatedly have said did not turn out to be the case. And he repeated it after the police said that wasn't the case. He still went out and repeated it. And so what I think it shows you is the fact that they still don't really have their story together, and they're just flailing around. They're trying to, you notice how they're shifting away from saying, oh, this was a real national emergency, to saying, oh, well, a lot of the protesters, said things that we disagree with, and they said some things that, a lot of Canadians may not like. And of course, that's not the standard for invoking the Emergencies Act. It's not just that some protesters have opinions that some people don't like. I mean, then the standard that could be used, by anybody. And the one thing that a lot of Liberals, I see supporting what the Trudeau government did, the one thing they're not thinking of is what are the long-term consequences to the country of lowering the bar for the use of emergency government powers. I mean, you have in BC right now people setting RCMP vehicles on fire, messing around with pipelines, and acts that you could certainly say, oh well, this is a threat to Canada's national energy infrastructure. The Emergencies Act should be invoked and we should go arrest those people. So I think as a country, you need to be very careful about lowering the threshold for invoking such draconian powers. And a lot of Liberals seem to just assume they're going to be in power forever, which in a democracy obviously is not the case.
No, that's a good point, Spencer. And I mean, I think back to just, 10 minutes before COVID hit, you had those rail blockades, mostly by natives across Canada. It was doing hundreds of millions of dollars in economic damage. It was, really hurting people's daily lives. And that went on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And there was no consideration of the Emergencies Act for something that you could argue was more of a genuine emergency than what happened on Wellington Street. But I got to ask you, Spencer, the perverse sidebar that's going on right now with the inquiry is Doug Ford's reluctance to go there. He seems downright terrified. I'm wondering if you have any insight into what might be making the premier so timid to take the stand. I mean, after all, he said he stands shoulder to shoulder with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
If you can think back to February, do you think that the federal government was justified in using the Emergencies Act to lift the occupation of downtown Ottawa?
Well, we have some of the top officials with the OPP testifying, and yes, I stood shoulder to shoulder with the Prime Minister. These folks were, camping out, everything from whirlpools, disrupting downtown, disrupting the lives of the people of Ottawa. We've worked collaboratively with the mayor and the Prime Minister over at the borders. They were holding up $1 billion of trade every single day, getting across our borders. We were getting phone calls from governors. It's unacceptable. Myself and I know the Prime Minister believe in free speech. And if you want to protest, protest. If you want to come down to Queen's Park and do cartwheels. But if you disrupt the lives of the people of Ottawa every single day, disrupt the lives, the economic flow across our borders, I have zero tolerance for it. Thank you.
Who, by the way, earlier today threw Doug Ford under the bus by saying he stands with the teachers' unions. But
using the notwithstanding clause to suspend workers' rights is wrong. I know that collective bargaining negotiations are sometimes difficult, but it has to happen. It has to be done in a respectful, thoughtful way at the bargaining table. The suspension of people's rights is something that you should only do in the most exceptional circumstances, and I really hope that all politicians call out the overuse of the notwithstanding clause to suspend people's rights and freedoms.
Nevertheless, Spencer, what is your take on why Ford seems so downright terrified to go to Ottawa?
I think for him, it's very political. I think he's kind of trying to have it both ways. He's trying to, not talk about the convoy too much. When he does, he tries to, say he supported the federal government. But he doesn't really want to say that too often. He doesn't want too many clips of him saying that because he knows a lot of his base supported the Freedom Convoy. So I think the last thing he wants is to have, hours and hours of clips of him either really taking a position either way, either if he's talking about, fully supporting that kind of action. A lot of people in his own party won't like it. And if he talks about if the evidence comes out that he was actually opposed to it, then people will question, okay, well, if you were opposed to it, why are you saying something different now? I'm not sure that's the case, but obviously they're very concerned. So I think he just kind of wants it to go away. He thinks, I got reelected. That's all in the past. Let's move on from it. But it's there's obviously something they're very concerned about, and I think it's really a political issue for him. I think he's tried to kind of walk the line and keep both some in his voter coalition liked the use of the act. A lot of people didn't, and he's trying to keep those people together. And I don't think he wants hours and hours of clips of him talking about it, because some stuff that's going to come out that's going to anger either side.
What you just saw was an excerpt from my nightly show, the Ezra Levants Show. Every weekday, I do a monologue. Usually it's about half an hour. Then I interview an interesting guest, and then we read my hate mail or my fan mail, whichever is more fun. It's only available behind a paywall, though. That's how we pay our bills here at Rebel News. We don't take a dime from Justin Trudeau. But the good news is it's only $8 a month, about half the price of Netflix. And in addition to my nightly show, you also get weekly shows from 4 other friends here at Rebel News. So you're getting 36 shows a month just for $8. I think it's worth it. And even if you're not quite sure, do it anyways, because we rely on viewers like you to keep us free and independent. I promise you I'll never take a dime from Trudeau. Just go to rebelnewsplus.com and click subscribe. Thanks.